Okay, Americans, let's talk travel. That little blue book, your passport, it's not just a golden ticket to unlimited vacation selfies. It's a responsibility to understand that the world doesn't revolve around us. But the reality? Not every corner of the globe is chanting USA. This isn't about bashing America. It's about facing the music, acknowledging our global footprint, and understanding that actions have the consequences. Buckle up. We've all seen the glossy travel brochures, pristine beaches, smiling locals, promises of adventure. But behind those picture-perfect images often lies a more complex reality. History, politics, cultural clashes, they leave their mark. Countries, like people, have long memories. Ignoring these realities won't make them disappear. Pretending everything is hunky-dory is a surefire way to come across as clueless, or worse, disrespectful. Let's be honest, America. We often view the world through red, white, and blue-tinted glasses. What plays well at home doesn't always translate abroad. Our loud voices, our casual attire, our obsession with personal space, things we consider normal can be seen as rude, insensitive, or downright offensive in other cultures. The sooner we ditch the ugly American stereotype, the better. Because newsflash, the world doesn't operate on our terms. Each country has its own customs, traditions, and social rules. You might be surprised by what you learn. Let's rewind the clock, shall we? Remember that whole colonialism thing? Yeah. Turns out it wasn't just a European hobby. America, land of the free, has a bit of a history with throwing its weight around. From the Caribbean to Southeast Asia, there are corners of the world where the stars and stripes still evoke memories of military interventions, regime change, and good old-fashioned meddling. Take, for instance, Latin America. From the Banana Wars to the CIA-backed coups, the US has a knack for leaving its fingerprints all over the region's history, and not in a good way. These interventions, often justified in the name of democracy or fighting communism, left a bitter aftertaste. The scars of these historical events run deep, shaping perceptions of America to this day. The Cold War, a time when the world was a giant chessboard and the United States and Soviet Union were locked in a high-stakes game of risk. From Korea to Vietnam, Afghanistan to Nicaragua, proxy wars raged, leaving behind a trail of devastation and resentment. Countries like Cuba and North Korea, once pawns in this global power struggle, still bear the scars of this era. The United States embargo on Cuba, for instance, has crippled the island nation's economy for decades. Is it any wonder then that some Cubans might not be lining up to shake hands with American tourists? Remember that friend who always offers unsolicited advice even when you're not asking for it? Yeah, that's America sometimes, especially when it comes to foreign policy. From the Middle East to Africa, the United States has a penchant for intervening in other countries' affairs, often with disastrous consequences. Think drone strikes, regime change, and endless wars that seem to achieve little except chaos and resentment. This savior complex, as some call it, rubs many people the wrong way. The reality is, these interventions often have unintended consequences, destabilizing regions, fueling anti-American sentiment. Sometimes the best thing you can do is step back and let others handle their own messes. Let's face it, America. Being a global superpower has its perks, but it also comes with a hefty price tag, and not just the financial kind. When you're calling the shots, people tend to notice, and when those shots result in drone strikes, economic sanctions, or military occupations, well, let's just say it doesn't always win you popularity contests. The truth is, power breeds resentment. America's global dominance, while often presented as a force for good, has a dark underbelly. So, before you don that Make America Great Again hat and hop on a plane, remember this: the world is watching. Remember that time you posted a spicy take on social media, and the internet collectively lost its mind? Multiply that by 1,000, add a language barrier, and you start to get a sense of how quickly anti-American sentiment can spread in the digital age. Social media acts like a global loudspeaker, amplifying both legitimate grievances and straight-up misinformation. A single viral video, whether it's of a tourist behaving badly or a US drone strike, can spark outrage and protests halfway across the world. It's not just about governments or political movements anymore. Everyday people, from farmers in rural villages to students in bustling cities, have access to platforms where they can voice their anger, frustration, or disappointment with US policies. And guess what? They're not always sending us virtual hugs. Remember that dream trip to a tropical paradise, where you pictured yourself sipping margaritas on the beach, carefree and unburdened? Well, for some Americans, that idyllic vacation can turn into a bureaucratic nightmare, thanks in part to how the US is perceived on the world stage. Increased visa restrictions, heightened security checks, and outright travel bans. These are just some of the hurdles Americans might face when trying to visit certain countries. While these measures are often framed as necessary precautions, they can also feel like a slap in the face to those simply wanting to experience a different culture. Imagine being told you can't visit a country because of your nationality, not because you've done anything wrong, but simply because of where you hold a passport. It's a sobering reminder that the privilege of free movement isn't universal, and that our nationality can, in some cases, be a liability. Let's talk visas, baby. That magical little stamp that determines whether you get to live out your travel dreams or stay stuck at home binge-watching travel documentaries. But here's the rub for Americans. Getting those visas can sometimes feel like navigating a bureaucratic labyrinth designed by Kafka himself. While citizens of many countries can breeze through airports with a quick passport scan, Americans often face a more rigorous process. Lengthy applications, hefty fees, interviews at embassies, and requests for detailed financial records. It's enough to make you want to ditch the whole travel thing and just order takeout. These stringent visa requirements aren't always applied equally. It's a reminder that the privilege of mobility isn't enjoyed equally by all. Okay, so we've talked about the big picture stuff. The historical baggage, the political tensions, the social media firestorms. But what about the everyday encounters, those seemingly small moments that can make or break a travel experience? Imagine this. You're at a bustling market in a foreign country, excited to soak up the local culture. You strike up a conversation with a vendor, eager to practice your rusty language skills. But as soon as they learn you're American, their demeanor changes. The smiles fade, the conversation turns cold, and you're left feeling like you've suddenly sprouted a second head. Or maybe it's something more subtle, a dismissive wave of the hand, a muttered comment under someone's breath, a reluctance to make eye contact. These microaggressions, while not always overt or malicious, can chip away at your sense of belonging and leave you feeling like an outsider. Let's talk about money, honey. Specifically, America's love affair with capitalism. We flaunt it, we brand it, we practically wear it like a badge of honor. But here's the kicker. Not everyone is on board with our brand of free market frenzy. In many parts of the world, particularly those with a history of colonialism or exploitation, American-style capitalism is viewed with suspicion, even outright hostility. They see it as a system that prioritizes profit over people, widens the gap between rich and poor, and often comes at the expense of local cultures and economies. The point is, our economic might, while often touted as a sign of progress, can also be a source of tension. Lights, camera, stereotype. Let's be real, America Hollywood has a lot to answer for. We've spent decades exporting our version of the world, often through the lens of action heroes, sassy sidekicks, and a whole lot of explosions. And guess what? Not everyone sees themselves reflected in that blockbuster mirror. From bumbling tourists to gun-toting cowboys, arrogant businessmen to clueless teenagers, Hollywood has a knack for churning out caricatures that reinforce negative perceptions of Americans abroad. And while we might laugh at these stereotypes on screen, they can have real-world consequences, shaping how we're perceived and treated by people who know little else about our culture. Imagine growing up watching movies where Americans are always the heroes, always saving the day, always getting the girl. Now imagine you live in a country where US foreign policy has had a less than stellar track record. Do you think you might have a slightly different perspective on the whole America, the great narrative? The point is, our entertainment industry, while often dismissed as harmless fun, wields immense cultural power. It's a reminder that images matter, that representation matters, and that sometimes the stories we tell about ourselves can be more revealing than we realize. Section 3. The ugly American stereotype. Fact or fiction? Let's address the elephant in the room, shall we? The ugly American stereotype. That loud, obnoxious, and culturally insensitive traveler. Is it a fair assessment? Like most stereotypes, it's complicated. Millions of Americans travel abroad respectfully and curiously. Broad generalizations are inaccurate and unfair. Yet, some Americans do exhibit these behaviors. Our norms can be misconstrued as rude or insensitive abroad. Stereotypes, while harmful, often stem from real observations. Section 4. Lost in translation beyond the language barrier. Okay, picture this. You're in a foreign country, excited to immerse yourself in the local culture. You've got your phrasebook handy, you're ready to sample the cuisine, and you're even attempting a few basic greetings. But somehow something gets lost in translation. The problem is, communication goes beyond words. It's about body language, social cues, and unspoken cultural norms. And these things, well, they don't always translate so easily. Take, for instance, the simple act of smiling. In America, it's a sign of friendliness, openness, maybe even flirtation. But in some cultures, excessive smiling can be seen as insincere, even disrespectful. Similarly, a thumbs-up gesture, while universally positive in the US, can be deeply offensive in other parts of the world. It's like that time you accidentally called your teacher mom. Sure, you meant well, but the words didn't quite convey the intended message, did they? The point is, even with the best intentions, cultural misunderstandings can arise, leading to awkward encounters, hurt feelings, and a whole lot of confusion. And when you're talking about deeply ingrained cultural values, things like personal space, social hierarchy, or religious customs, the potential for miscommunication only amplifies. Pack your patience and leave your assumptions at home. So you're determined to travel the world, even to those places where the welcome mat might be a little frayed. Good for you. First things first, pack your patience. And when you're done, pack some more. Traveling to a country where anti-American sentiment simmers means accepting that things might not always go your way. You might encounter long lines, bureaucratic hurdles, or even outright hostility. Don't take it personally. You're the guest, and it's your job to be respectful. Leave your assumptions at the door. What flies in America might be a major faux pas elsewhere. Embrace the differences, roll with the punches, and remember, you're not in Kansas anymore. Section 2. Cultural chameleons. Blending in, not sticking out. Newsflash. When traveling to a country where Americans aren't exactly greeted with a marching band, it's best to avoid sticking out like a sore thumb. We're not talking about a full-on Jason Bourne identity swap, but a little cultural camouflage goes a long way. Ditch the loud, flashy clothing that screams, tourist. Opt for neutral colors and styles that blend in with the locals. Bonus points for researching local customs and trying to incorporate them into your attire. Remember that time you wore a bright yellow tracksuit to a funeral? No? Well, trust us, it's not a good look. Same goes for rocking a Stars and Stripes tank top in a country where the US flag might as well be a red flag. Learn a few basic phrases in the local language. Even a simple hello, thank you, or excuse me demonstrates respect and willingness to engage with the culture. Bonus points for mastering the art of the non-verbal apology, that sheepish smile and shrug that transcends language barriers. Section 3. Bridge over troubled waters, finding common ground. You've mastered patience, become a local fashion icon, and your language attempts are met with smiles. Congratulations, you're becoming a cultural ambassador. Now comes the fun part, connecting on a human level. Behind cultural differences, we're all just people navigating life. Find common ground. Sports, music, food, universal languages that bridge cultural divides. Strike up a conversation, bond over jazz, or ask for the best street food. Listen more than you speak. Ask open-ended questions, be curious, respectful, and challenge your assumptions. Travel is a two-way street. Learn, grow, and connect with people from all walks of life. And who knows, you might even make a few friends along the way. Section 1. The world doesn't owe us a vacation. Okay, America, time for a reality check. That blue passport doesn't grant us automatic entry into hearts and minds, no matter how many frequent flyer miles we've racked up. The world doesn't owe us a smile, a selfie, or a stamp of approval. We've journeyed through the messy realities of history, politics, and cultural clashes. We've seen how our actions, both past and present, shape the way we're perceived on the world stage. And maybe, just maybe, we've realized that the ugly American stereotype, while an exaggeration, isn't entirely conjured out of thin air. This isn't about guilt trips or self-flagellation. It's about understanding that our freedom, our prosperity, our very way of life exists in a complex, interconnected world where not everyone shares our experiences or perspectives. Traveling with this awareness isn't about checking boxes on a to-do list. It's about acknowledging the weight of our history, the power of our present, and the responsibility we have to engage with the world in a way that's both humble and humane. Section 2. Beyond diplomacy, people-to-people passports. Governments and diplomats with their treaties and summits can only do so much. Real change, the kind that dismantles stereotypes and builds bridges, happens one conversation, one shared meal, one genuine interaction at a time. That's where we, the people, come in. We hold the real passports, the ones stamped with curiosity, empathy, and a willingness to step outside our comfort zones. These passports can't be revoked, they don't require visas, and they're valid in every corner of the globe. Imagine a world where American travelers are known not for their loud voices or their fanny packs, but for their genuine interest in other cultures, their willingness to listen and learn, their respect for local customs. Imagine the conversations that could be had, the friendships that could be forged, the walls that could be broken down. This isn't some utopian fantasy. It's a call to action, a challenge to rewrite the narrative of what it means to be an American abroad. It's about recognizing that the greatest souvenir we can bring back from our travels isn't a t-shirt or a snow globe, but a newfound understanding of our shared humanity. Section 3. The Grand American Adventure Rewritten. So, pack your bags, America, but leave the arrogance at home. Trade in the been there, done that attitude for a spirit of open-minded exploration. Embrace the unknown, the uncomfortable, the unexpected. Let's rewrite the script of the Grand American Adventure. Let's trade in the tourist traps for authentic encounters. Let's swap the selfie stick for a genuine handshake. Let's replace the fear of the other with the joy of connection. This isn't just about being a better traveler, it's about being a better human. It's about recognizing that the world is a tapestry of cultures, each with its own unique beauty and complexity. So go forth, America, and explore, but do it with humility, with respect, and with a heart open to the transformative power of genuine human connection. The world is waiting to meet the real you, the one who listens more than they speak, the one who seeks to understand rather than to judge, the one who travels not to escape the world, but to truly experience it. Go on, surprise us.